And then there were 8. Welcome to the divisional round of the 2024-2025 NFL playoffs. After this week, we are going to see who participates in Championship Sunday. Things are coming down to the wire, and we can only hope that the games this week are a lot better than what we saw in the wild card round, because those games were absolutely atrocious. Thankfully, there were some interesting results. Now, on my end, it ended up being a disaster, because I only went 3-3 with my predictions last week, but nonetheless, we've got a good mix of teams here, and I'm curious to see how it goes. I'm going to give you my breakdown and predictions of all of the action, so let's dive right into this. And we start things off on Saturday afternoon, where the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs look to go on a three-peat run, starting off with the game against the Houston Texans. Not gonna lie, did not expect the Chiefs to be playing Houston here, but here we are. They ended up waking up, the Chargers choked hard, and their defense came to play. I had a lot of doubts about them, but they showed that the playoffs is basically a brand new season. You're starting from scratch. The Texans made the most of that opportunity, and I'm super proud of them. CJ Stroud played well. You gotta love what the pass rush did too. They've got some good momentum going for them, and they at least played somewhat close against the Chiefs the last time they played. So you'd have to imagine they at least feel somewhat good about their chances in this one. On the other side of it, you got the Chiefs, who basically had 2 bye weeks in a row because they already had the 1 seed clinched in week 18. They are well rested. They should be well prepared. You know they're ready for any outcome because of who's coaching this team, because of who's at quarterback. They're ready for this game. And because of that freshness, they should have a supreme advantage. The Chiefs are the very obvious favorites in this game, as the Texans are very inexperienced still, and despite them beating the Chargers, you have to admit the Chargers did choke really hard in that one, even though the Texans gave them opportunities to win that game. They're still not all that proven over the last handful of weeks, and the Chiefs are a significantly more difficult challenge. And that especially becomes the case in the playoffs. Last year there were doubts about them, this year there were doubts about them, but we saw what happened. They went on a crazy run, everybody elevated their play like crazy. Travis Kelce tends to turn the clock back when the playoffs come around. You know that this is what they've been fighting for, and because they're trying to pursue absolute greatness, crazy history here, I think they're going to show us a level of play that we have not seen from them all season. I find it hard to believe the Texans can keep up with something like that. Their defense did show some great strides against the Chargers, but they also had Justin Herbert throwing 4 interceptions, and you know Pat Mahomes isn't going to do that. That inexperienced secondary may have a lot harder of a time going up against Pat Mahomes in the elite offensive mind of Andy Reid, and there's just so many weapons on this Chiefs team. I know they haven't scored 30 points like this entire season, but they just might do it in this one. Because Xavier Worthy, he could probably explode now that they have so many different weapons out there with Hollywood Brown back, with D-Hop, with Travis Kelce. He becomes even more of a threat in that vertical passing game. And just having elite catchers like that out there, like Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins, those security blankets, if you will, I just don't really see how the Texans can cover all of that. I kind of feel like they're out-talented, they're outmanned, and they're out-coached in this situation. And I do have the Chiefs winning this one. I think they are going to ultimately take the game 27-20. It'll be close, at least in terms of the score, but I feel like the Chiefs will probably stay in control because that's typically what they do. I want to give the Texans a chance because this Chiefs team is not unbeatable by any stretch. But again, that inexperience factor and maybe getting lucky against a horrible team that choked in the final hour, it just doesn't give me all that much confidence in this group. It all depends on if their pass rush can get home again or not. If the Texans want to make this a game, they've got to do exactly what they did against the Chargers. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, they've got to be beasts out there. They can't let Pat Mahomes have a lot of time to throw. But that is a lot easier said than done. And again, I don't know if they've shown the consistency or if they have the talent to make that a reality. So you got to go with the Kansas City Chiefs here. This is going to be a tough one for Houston to win. Then we have the other 1 seed coming off the bye. The Detroit Lions are hosting the Washington Commanders. Not who I expected them to play, but I don't know if it's that shocking at the same time. Jaden Daniels showed us last week that he really is him. This guy, this entire season, has played so well in the clutch, so well under pressure in these game-winning drives, and he did it again against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It truly seems like this guy was born for the spotlight, and I'm just so impressed with what this guy is doing as a rookie quarterback. The question is, can they keep it close against the Detroit Lions? Yes, this team is injured to hell and back. They are losing so many players left and right, but offensively, they are elite. They can more than match the Commanders' pace. We're going to be seeing if the Commanders can keep pace with Detroit. Like, we know the Lions are going to give up points because their defense is so injured, but if their offense is putting up like 40 points every single game, I don't know how much it matters. In a similar light to the Texans against the Chiefs, it kind of feels like the Commanders are just a bit outmanned, a bit outmatched from a talent perspective. They've got a lot of veterans on this roster, and again, it seems like the sky's the limit for this kid at quarterback, but I don't know if they're ready yet. This is just the first year of taking this off the ground, and they've already overachieved heavily, and they're playing a potential Super Bowl favorite here. This seems like a game that Detroit should be winning just because their offense is so great. It could be a struggle because you can't really sleep on the Commanders, but I think with the talent and knowing what's on the line, trying to get to the Super Bowl, that the Lions will take care of business at home. They've lost so many players, but it doesn't ever seem to matter. They keep pushing forward. I had doubts about them against the Vikings in Week 18, but they showed they're not tired, they can keep fighting, and they will continue to find ways to win, and it will always be the next man up mentality with these guys. They're doing God's work with that defense. That defensive coordinator should be a head coach right now. He's absolutely insane. So impressive there, and I think the Lions will find a way to game plan and take care of business. Maybe they win in a shootout. Maybe their defense is able to fluster Jaden Daniels a little bit, but either way, it seems like the Lions have all the cards on their side, so I am picking them to win this game. I think the Lions are going to take this one by a score of 38-24. Enough about that, though. We're moving on to the Sunday games, the first of which is the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the LA Rams, and I'll be honest, this one probably has the biggest upset potential of any game on the week in terms of like a Super Bowl aspiration type of team versus one we have more doubts with. The Rams have a real opportunity to go into Philly and dismantle this team, and that's because of what we saw last weekend between the Rams dominating the Vikings the way they did and the fact that Philly, despite beating the Packers, really didn't look all that impressive. In fact, I was rather concerned with what I witnessed. It felt like the Eagles just had to sit there and do nothing while the Packers consistently shot themselves in the foot, and against a real elite team looking to win the Super Bowl, that's just not something you're going to get away with. And the Rams are by no means frauds. They have been one of the hottest teams in football. If you look at how they've done after their bad start, I mean, that defense has been playing so much better than I thought they would. The Vikings' O-line, I think for the most part, has held up well this year, but they had Sam Darnold seeing ghost out there. There was constant pressure. The evolution of Jared Verse this season has been fantastic to watch, and if they can keep up that momentum, the Eagles could be in real trouble. And the reason I say that is because their execution on offense was god-awful in this game against the Green Bay Packers last week. My brother, who's a really big Eagles fan, was watching the game with me, and I told him throughout that it felt like the Eagles were trying not to lose this game. They weren't playing to win, they were playing not to lose. With some of the play calling with their offense, I don't know who's in charge of it, but it was very questionable throughout. It felt like they did not trust Jalen Hurts to go out there and win this game. They were not putting a lot of faith in their quarterback, and I find that highly questionable considering that just a couple of years ago, he played an amazing match in the Super Bowl. He proved that he can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback and that he can put the team on his back, and yet in this game, when they needed him to convert, they just never gave him much of an opportunity. I mean, we're talking draw plays on like 3rd and 15, 3rd and 12. These predictable 4 vertical concepts on a 3rd and extremely long that had no chance of getting a first down. Predictable play calling, horrible play calling, not giving the ball to your quarterback, your franchise quarterback. I just didn't like what I saw, and I'm scared that we're heading towards the territory of last year. The same situation. I'm praying for Eagles fans out there that it's not the case and that they'll have a better game plan against the Rams, but if they're going to play like how they did against Green Bay, I'm telling you right now, they're not beating the Rams. If you don't want to trust your quarterback, put the ball in his hands to go out there and win you a football game, then I don't know what to tell you, man. Especially against Matt Stafford and the Rams, it's not going to fly. That play style against the Packers, that horrible level of execution, you're going to get destroyed by the Rams. I know the Rams have their ups and downs. Sometimes they don't show up, other times they do, but clearly, they're pretty locked in after that Vikings game. The confidence is rising, so I need to see a different version of the Eagles if they want to win. Now, ultimately, I do think the Eagles will adjust. I don't think it's going to be the same situation as last year, and I think they will win a tight contest against the Rams. I think it's going to be one score. I got the Eagles taking it 26-24. I won't even lie, I could be making a huge mistake putting faith in the Eagles after the showcase last week, but I'm going to believe in them. They've beaten the Rams once before. I believe that it's overall a really bad matchup for the Rams. The Eagles are just a really tough team for them to go up against because they rely so much on their pass rush, and while it was successful against the Vikings, it's going to be a lot harder against the Eagles, who have such an insane offensive line. Jalen Hurts had a lot of clean pockets in that game against Green Bay. He just wasn't necessarily making the right reads, or again, the play calling was questionable as well. I believe he'll have the clean pockets, and he'll get rid of the ball faster than somebody like Sam Darnold, who's so inexperienced in the playoffs. If the Rams still had like Aaron Donald, let's say, yeah, maybe we'd be having a different conversation here, but I don't know if there's enough playmakers on the Rams to outsmart and outplay the likes of that Eagles O-line, which is just so dominant. And now they have Saquon. It doesn't quite feel like last year. They have such a good bell cow back in a guy like Saquon. The last time he played against the Rams, he put up like a franchise freaking record for rushing yards for the Philadelphia Eagles. He could have a similar performance here, and I think that Jalen Hurts can do the rest on some like third and shorts, third and manageables because of what Saquon can do on the ground. This is just a bad matchup for the Rams, unfortunately. Eagles O-line takes away their strongest advantage on defense, and it's a bit harder to have your strongest advantage on offense, aka Matt Stafford's arm, because the Eagles pass rush and the Eagles secondary has been so lethal this year. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to very unconfidently say that the Eagles win this game, although deep down, as an Eagles hater, I really do hope the Rams win. And last, but most certainly not least, we've got the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night, the last divisional game of the week. And oh boy, at least on paper, this should be the best game of the week. It has all the potential in the world. The 2 seed versus the 3 seed in the AFC. We've got both of the MVP frontrunners going up against one another. This is everything that you want in a playoff game. And you know, at least to me, this game kind of feels like a 50-50 split right down the middle. Both teams, they have a very similar style of play. They play behind a carry-oriented quarterback who has a good pair of legs, who also has been slinging the rock with relative ease this year. They both got relatively good run games, if not great. I mean, especially at the Ravens, you might argue they're a bit ahead between that Lamar and Derrick Henry combo. But regardless, they both play a similar style of football. They've both played very, very well the last handful of months. It's going to be a tough one. I would argue that the Buffalo Bills at least have some kind of advantage because they're at home. I think that could be a pretty big deal. Seems like they usually play better in their home building, but at the same time, the Ravens, I mean, they beat the Buffalo Bills the last time they played. I will argue that it's been a very long time since then, but they still showed us that they can beat the brakes off of them if they can get it going with Derrick Henry. The question for the Buffalo Bills is going to be if they have a recipe for success to stop Derrick Henry. Can they slow this guy down this time around? It's a tough question to answer, right? Because Derrick Henry, he turns it up in the playoffs. He's such an elite performer in the postseason. He's shown us so many times. He did it against the Steelers. But I will argue at the very least, even if the Bills can't really contain him, that they'll do a better job of maintaining time of possession on their side and keeping this score close. As the last time the Ravens played Buffalo, the Bills were just entering a bit of a funk. They went on a losing streak, losing to them, and then the Texans 2 games in a row. Josh Allen wasn't playing so great for like a certain stretch back then, but obviously he has turned up the heat since then, so I'm expecting a much different outcome, at least in terms of how close this game is. Maybe you'd argue that Derrick Henry could give Baltimore the edge because of the tone setter that he is. And again, like I was saying last week, how important it is to have an enforcer like him in the cold weather like that. But on the other side of things, the Ravens, with Lamar Jackson at least, they've been chokers in the playoffs. I mean, you could argue a similar thing for the Bills, but a lot of the time it's just because of the damn Chiefs more than anything else. The Ravens, it's more like they just get in their own way. Lamar gets in his own way. Can I trust in him for this to be a different year? Can this time be the year where he performs well in a super important playoff game against a really good team like the Buffalo Bills? I just don't know. I mean, this year feels kind of different because he has someone like Derrick Henry to rely on. But last year, the Ravens still had a pretty good run game, and what happened was they abandoned that run game when they played the Chiefs, and Lamar tried to play hero ball. We've seen it a couple of times in his career. Outside of the Texans game and what he did against the Steelers, there's been a lot of that. Just forcing bad throws, not looking like the same player, and I have to wonder if he's going to crumble in the pressure again or not. I've seen Josh Allen set his team up to succeed a lot. Outside of that loss to the Bengals that was really, really embarrassing, a lot of the time it feels like it's almost been out of his control and he's done enough to win the game, but somebody else lets him down. Compare that to Lamar, who lets the team down pretty consistently from a historic standpoint, and I think I'm gonna go with the Buffalo Bills to win this one. I trust them just a bit more because they have a better resume in the playoffs compared to Lamar. Lamar may be the better regular season player, at least statistically, compared to Josh Allen. Maybe he's going to be the one to win MVP. But to me, the Bills are more experienced and they're more reliable in the postseason. A strong argument can be made the Ravens are definitely the more talented team, but sometimes that's just not enough. It comes down to the execution, and I trust the Bills a lot more in that department, and I think they'll win this game 31-24. A lot of people argue that this year's different for the Ravens because Lamar is another experienced, maybe the motivation's changed, maybe with Derrick Henry things will be a bit easier for him. This is kind of why they brought him in. But I'd argue more than anything else that Buffalo is a different team this year for all the right reasons. They're the ones that give off a different vibe. Josh Allen is playing hero ball and everybody's rallying around him. Instead of certain individuals complaining, separating the team, they all feel like they're playing as one. The defense still remains strong despite all of the changes as well. Buffalo feel a lot different than any other iteration that we've seen in the Josh Allen era, and I believe that if any year is going to be the one where they win the Super Bowl, it'd probably be this one. This one's going to give them their best opportunity, and I don't think a choke artist like Lamar is going to get in their way. Maybe I'm being too harsh. The Lamar fans are going to get on me, but that's just my honest opinion. Until I see Lamar do it, I'm not going to pick him. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. This feels like the potential team of destiny to finally overcome the Chiefs, so they've got to get there to try and prove that to us all. Regardless, this feels like the most evenly matched game on paper, and I'm expecting it to be a really good one. I'm excited to see what these two quarterbacks bring to the table, and in general, I think the divisional round should be a lot more entertaining than what we saw in the wildcard round. Let me know your best bets and who you think is winning these games down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more NFL predictions just like this every single week.